We've got Richard Mcfarlane next, and he's going to be talking about gliding. He's going to show you a movie first, and then he's going to talk about it. And he has been gliding since 1982, about then. He was a powered pilot before he took up gliding. He owns a glider, which is a motor glider, so he can turn on the power whenever he wants to. And he's flown to the Gulf of Carpentaria, where this very unusual cloud formation comes in, and it's a delight for glider pilots to get anywhere near it and use it to the maximum effect. So, Richard, would you like to come forward?
This is our story of surfing the morning glory cloud, a unique phenomenon in the remote and inaccessible Gulf of Carpentaria. After years of dreaming and months of planning, our adventure begins. After crossing the vast Australian continent, we land at the bumpy bush strip at Escott Lodge, 8 miles from Burketown. We taxi up beside our cabins. We're welcomed by John and Melva Kenny, who have driven all the way from Perth in the Land Cruiser. We're also glad to meet Jeff Pratt, a very experienced and helpful Morning Glory pilot who arrived with his Monterey glider. We prepare the aircraft before dawn and take off from Burketown airfield as soon as we can see the instruments. We're excited to see a faint cloud line to the east. Crossing back to the secondary gives a different view of the cloud, sometimes so smooth you think you could land and walk along it, or at other times extraordinary shapes are bursting from inside, but always with the characteristic rolling motion, up at the front creating strong lift and down at the back. On the ground the effect is just as dramatic, as the primary and secondary clouds roll overhead. As the clouds pass above, the calm of the morning is broken by sudden gusts of wind from the east. Ximango is soaring in her element, floating in the ever-rising air, sometimes high and slow, or at maximum speed and the best lift close to the cloud. Afterwards we look at where we've been, and we've covered a lot of ground. After motoring about 40 miles out to contact the cloud, we've done a series of giant zigzags over the sea and the land, ending up about 80 miles to the west, close to the Northern Territory border, before the long motor home.
No morning glory cloud today. We travel to Lawn Hill National Park for some canoeing, a picnic lunch in this beautifully tranquil gorge surrounded by cliffs, tropical rainforest and a waterfall. Another day off, so we flew out to explore tiny Fliers Island and enjoy a scrumptious lunch prepared and served by the 4 sole inhabitants of the island. The cloud came in earlier today and we turned into it just after takeoff. It loomed silent and ominous, towering and dark to our right as we picked up the lift on its leading edge. We flew towards the sunrise, and today it is magnificent. Its gold shimmered on the sea and the silvery ribbons of the Nicholson and other rivers. The clouds were illuminated with reds, peaches and golds. We were surrounded by this wonderland, so spectacular and beautiful we felt we were halfway to heaven. John and Marguerite Chesborough have flown from Perth in their Mooney and are delighted to be with us today to share this exceptional morning. This is my first experience of flying in a morning glory cloud, and I am spellbound. We maintained a position in front of the cloud in 10 knots of lift, and surfed backwards and forwards at 100 knots for a couple of hours, with only the sound of the wind against the glider. The magnificence of this long white cloud, the land, and the outline of the Gulf of Carpentaria spread out below us was visually mesmerising.
Can't take off this morning. There's millions of fruit bats flying overhead. Streams of them flew by for about an hour. So back to Escott for breakfast. And time to talk about the morning glory itself. How is it formed? It seems that the two sea breezes over Cape York collide, generating the rolling motion, which is then pushed over the Gulf by the easterly wind. This creates a roll which is coming up at the leading edge, with the whole system moving west at about 20 knots. Normally only the top half of the cylinder is visible as cloud. I believe there may be a layer of hot air at low altitude, which gives the energy to keep the glory going. It can certainly travel very long distances and last a long time. Spend the rest of the day at Escott doing what bored glider pilots do when they can't fly. Into Burketown for the evening, a drink at the pub, a good meal at the Morning Glory restaurant, and then on to the Burketown rodeo for an enjoyable evening for everyone. This morning there's a lot of mist on the ground, and the glory cloud is different again. It's quite low and scoops up the mist like a giant vacuum cleaner. This is to be our last flight in the Wave. We have been very lucky to have 5 remarkable flights during our 12-day stay. The whole trip has been the pinnacle of my flying adventures. The energy, beauty and changing moods of the Morning Glory has touched my heart. It will be with me forever.